Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Creative Marketing Show. I'm really excited to chat with my good friend, Michelle Elliott, today. She is a brand photographer in London, Ontario, with a focus primarily in brand and product photography for Canadian businesses, both local and across the country. Now, what's really interesting about our conversation is we do talk about how to really prepare for your brand photography photo shoot, whether that's what to wear, how to build up that confidence, and to truly get what you really want out of a session. She's got some really great methods that I absolutely love. And one really stood out. You got to tune in to listen. Otherwise, we really talk about how she transitioned from her full-time career of 19 years to go full-time in this photography industry, which was not overnight. And she shares that process, which is super interesting. What I loved about this conversation is she didn't intend to go full-time with her photography business. It really started out as a creative outlet, which I thought was super fascinating. And we're going to dive into a little bit more of what she means by that. Otherwise, we talk about balancing life, family, all the good stuff. So let's get in and chat with Michelle. Hey, and welcome to the Creative Marketing Show. I'm your host, Angela S. Joyon. This is the podcast for ambitious women in business looking to cut the BS, stop dancing for likes, and learn to create honest and genuine marketing strategies that don't cause burnout and overwhelm. Have a question about content creation, social media, or maybe you're looking for more clarity on how to take your business to the next level. This is the show that brings the answers to your questions each and every week. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thank you for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime. We have connected, obviously inside the Creative Marketing membership, but we've had some really nice conversations offline. And I think the last time we spoke, we realized how much we have in common in terms of just
so much.
Well, one thing, I'm from where you live, and
yes,
we both have one son, and we've got all the sports and all the fun stuff. And so you are a full-time brand photographer, but you were not always a full-time brand photographer. But I know we're going to get into the importance of personal branding, how to prepare for that. You know, any listeners know my background for years was styling with photographers. And I know the value of like investing in good brand photography. So I definitely want to really dive deep for our listeners of like, how can we really prepare for it, what to expect, especially for those who are maybe not as confident with it. But what I wanted to kind of start this off with was you just left a full-time position. You were doing your brand photography on the side for, well, you let me know, like, how long were you managing both? Because recently you have shifted, you have left the full-time, you have dived face first, I'm sure.
It feels like
into it. Yeah. So I think that really stood out. I know, again, we're going to talk about some personal branding and photography, but I think just as a woman in business and taking that leap where it's not just something you've been doing, how long did it take you to get there? And can you just, for one thing, introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and then, you know, where you started and where you are now.
Okay. Well, my name is Michelle, and I am a brand photographer. Well, I'm a photographer based in London, Ontario, and I'm predominantly based in branding and product work with local businesses and then also businesses across Canada. It's kind of, you know, a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I am a very, very busy human. I mean, we all are, right? Like, this is a very busy season for everybody. Anybody that I'm talking to, whether they have a business or they don't have a business, it's a very busy season. And, you know, with back to school and heading into the holidays and, you know, all of that stuff. So I did actually, last week was my first week not with a corporate job. I was with the same place for 19 years. And so it was weird. I've been doing both for 6.
Okay. Wow.
For 6 years.
Amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, it wasn't supposed to be anything, which I think is why there's a lot of there's a lot of like imposter syndrome. There's a lot of all of that stuff because I didn't want to have a business. I didn't set out to have a business. I just needed a creative outlet. And for years and years and years, I baked, did cupcakes and cakes for weddings and birthdays and all of that stuff.
Okay, we have that in common too.
Yeah.
No
Shocking.
way. That's hilarious. I used to have
Yeah.
I called it Angie Baby Cakes. And I
There
would
you
do
go.
weddings and
Oh,
all of that because I loved doing it. And I tried it as a
yeah.
business, and after a while I'm like, well, now it doesn't feel as fun. That's so
No, well,
funny.
and it's a like anybody that is in that area of
Oh my
business,
gosh.
like I have so much respect for them because it is a very tricky business to navigate. I
Yeah,
mean, nobody wants to spend the money that it actually, like the value of it, right?
totally.
Because the amount of work that goes into it, and forget about the overhead, like the overhead is obvious, that's obvious. But there would be nights where I'd be mucking around with this cake and it would be like 2 in the morning and I'm thinking I got to get up at 6 in the morning. Like it was just,
It's
you know,
stressful.
it's so stressful. And then, somebody gets it and, you're like, I hope they like it.
I
I hope
think
it
that's
tastes
the worst. It's not
good.
like you get A and B delivered, this is it, you're happy, we did our exchange, because it's so
Hmm.
creative. Do you find, actually, I'm going to segue, you know me, I like to bounce around.
Let's just like,
Do you find that with photography, because it's
yes.
like that same kind of feeling, like I hope you like it, because we can't
Yeah.
go back. I mean, I guess you could, but
You
like,
could, yeah. No, it is. And it's one of those things. A girlfriend of mine and I were talking the other day, and she was like, I was telling her a story about something that had happened. And she was like, I feel like your job is like 25% photography and 75% therapy. And I'm like, oh, no, it is. Like,
yeah,
it's a very complex area to work in.
yeah.
I mean, there's things that I've modified over the years in order to kind of make it go as smoothly as possible. Because, I could take a photo of you and be like, wow, like she looks amazing in this photo and look at this and look at
Yeah.
that. And then I could give it to you. Like for me, for example, like I do all my own branding work because there's not a human I hate in the world enough to make them take my photo. Like,
I'm sure any photographers listening would probably resonate with you on that. Yeah.
yeah, like it's just, so I do all of my own and it takes a whole lot of time. And by the end of it, I'm sweaty and usually there's some tears, but like, I just, I, I mean, it's come a long ways because now there's like apps and stuff, but, I would look at a photo that somebody took of me and be like, oh my God, look, I've got my dad's wrinkly forehead, or I've,
Uh,
this, that, or the other thing, you know what I mean? Like, look at the
yeah.
bags under my eyes or, whatever. And so we innately, I think, are just programmed to tear ourselves down.
Mm.
And so it's a very tricky area to navigate. Like I said, there's a lot of things that I've put into place to help kind of mitigate that where I can. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to, as humans, we just have hangups about ourselves.
We're so
And
critical.
yeah, and
Yeah.
something that someone else might look at and say, wow, that's something that's beautiful about, like, I think of like stretch marks and stuff like that as beautiful, but
Right.
there are people that are like lasering these things off, so like it's such a funny place to be and a strange place to navigate, but it is absolutely, and art is subjective, right? Any kind
For
of
sure.
art that you do is so subjective that there are going to be people that love them. And I mean, think of like the sepia tones back in like the 80s, right? At the time everybody's like, oh, we love this, and now you think, oh, but then that kind of look has come back in again,
Right.
so it's just one of those things, right?
Yeah. What
Yeah,
I
for
really
sure.
enjoy that you said when you got into it, and doing both for 6 years in addition to your full-time day job, I love that you mentioned that it was a creative outlet, because I feel like so much of us crave that. And
Hmm.
I'm the same way. Like I love anything I can get creative. I'm working on something, a passion project right now. Is it something that could maybe turn into, well, quote unquote, like side hustle? Probably, because that's where my marketing head naturally goes. But it
Yeah.
is, I think it is important, if you are a creative, like, to have that. But we also want to eat and wear pants and put our kids through baseball. Like we
Oh,
have
oh, was I
responsibilities and
supposed to wear
accountabilities.
pants?
It is a podcast. You
Whoops.
don't really have to. That's what I love about podcasting. But a
No, but
girl's
it's
got to eat.
true. Yeah, no, it's true. And I think that um I think that we're very much programmed to, like, for example, me, like I would never have said I'm creative. Not in a million years.
Interesting.
I cannot draw a straight line with a ruler. When I had to take art in school, I took drama because I didn't want
Yeah.
to like draw anything, or you know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean that wouldn't surprise anyone that I took drama, but but you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where I think you have to try different mediums and see. I mean, I think everybody does have some sort of creative piece to them.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of whether or not they find that right outlet that kind of lets that expand and grow. And I mean, if you can do something with it that you can maybe turn a bit of a profit on, then awesome. If that's what you want, right? Like it was never my intention to have a business. It was certainly not my intention to ever leave my full-time career. I mean, like I said, I'd been there forever. I worked my way up, you know, like I had no intention of doing it. But I think that when things kind of organically happen, that's maybe where the magic is, you know?
Yeah. I could see that.
And that, I mean, it comes with baggage. Like I said, there's a lot of, imposter syndrome because I didn't go to school for it, or because I'm, you know, I always say I'm a graduate of YouTube University because I'm constantly watching videos and all of that stuff. But
you're
I
in the
think
right
that's
place
okay.
because I think that the scrappiness, and I think I'll resonate with that. Like even for myself, as a marketing strategist, and like I have been one of those people as a creative. I've done it all. I've done huge event planning, galas, weddings, photography, styling. I had an online shop before, closed that down. Now I'm full in marketing strategy, online. It's like I'm one of those people where like my brothers are probably like, I have no idea what my sister does because I'm like, oh, how can I like?
I'm gonna do it all,
right? And sometimes it's like I'm thank goodness I have a patient husband, but that's just kind of where my head goes. But I was listening to I don't know if you've ever heard of Sun Yi. He has this really cool online community called Night Owl Nation. And his stuff on YouTube YouTube and Instagram is pretty inspiring and really interesting. Now there's a few things I'm not resonating with his content, but there's a lot that I have. And one thing that I really enjoyed, and I think that this lends perfectly in your situation, and it's something that I can't resonate, but I see it. And that's where he's very, very blunt, very forward. For basically, I've always wanted to lead with passion. And then sometimes like that's where as an entrepreneur, it's like riding the highs and riding the lows. Definitely go through those highs and lows. And what he had said is, you know, building something, 20% should be your passion. The 80%'s got to be the other shit that makes you money. And when you can slowly get to that, maybe it's a 70% making money and then that 30% passion, where eventually, you know, you're able to pay for your passion, fuel your passion with the accountability, the responsibilities, the paycheck, where, you know, that's kind of that interesting opportunity where don't just lead with your passion, you know, fund your passion first, where then you can start to put more of that percentage towards it and it balances out. And I feel like you're a really good example of that. And maybe it's because you didn't have the intention. It just happened to, maybe that's, I don't know if you're a woo person. Maybe that's just the universe being like, girl, you are good at this. Keep going.
Well, thank you.
But I have a question. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Right. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think you're right about all of that. And I think, you know, I am, you say woo, like I'm very much involved in the church and all of that stuff. And so there have been times where I've just been like, all right, you know, Jesus, take the wheel on this. Like, let's, you know, and you just have to. And for many, many reasons, not even just this, things that I've seen in my life, you know, sometimes you just have to, I'm very much you're where you're supposed to be and there's a reason for it all. And I know that that's not for everybody. And I appreciate that. But sometimes I think you have to have, in certain situations, have a certain amount of faith or faith in the universe or whomever it is that you're.
Or even yourself. Of being like, this feels good.
I can do it. Yeah.
And sometimes we all I feel like we were talking about, you know, when we're too critical on ourselves, but also so hard on ourselves where it's like, I'm really content. Should I be content? Should it be this? Why does it seem like so rewarding and fulfilling and easy? I must be fucking up something wrong, or the ball's 100% somewhere, right? We don't trust that.
Oh man, I've done something.
Right? Like how many times have we been in like such a good flow and you're like, this is great, but where's the but? Like what is going to drop here or what's so? Yeah, it's important to really just trust. Like no, like I got here. I'm good. This is because
I
that's
did
what
it.
you want, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I have
And
a
knowing
question.
that sense of accomplishment, right?
100%. Yeah.
hmm
And celebrating it. So question
That
you.
part I suck at, but keep going.
Ah, okay, we're gonna get there. We're gonna work on that because
We'll work on it.
yeah,
Work in
yeah.
progress. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that first day you were just saying where it was like last week or this week, that your first day where it's this is the business. This is what you're doing. What was that like that first morning?
It was weird.
Yeah,
I am very much a routine person,
right.
and so and I think that's just a byproduct of
19 years.
being well, and also being a parent, and having
Yeah.
to
Oh, for
organize things. And
sure.
I'm very much an organized human. And so every morning it's the exact same thing. I get up, I do my workout, I see him off, and then I would come, because I worked remotely from home, so I would come down here
Okay.
and I would just start work. And
Yep.
so I kind of continued with that. I came downstairs, I sent some emails, and then I actually went golfing with my mom and my aunt,
On
which
what day
was
of the week?
on a Monday.
Awesome. I love it. Isn't that
Yeah, so
amazing?
that was really, really nice. And I've got I have a mom and I have two aunts, and if I could grow up to be like them, I mean, that would just be like, they're such funny humans, but they have all had very important parts in kind of making me who I am now. And so
Aw,
having the space to be able to spend time with them, or if, God forbid, they needed something,
right.
being able to kind of have that space and that flexibility to do that was also very important in this decision,
Yeah.
in not leaving corporate to do this
Right.
specifically, but leaving corporate to choose happiness, to have the space and the energy and the mental bandwidth to do, things that I wanted to do, and things that not saying that I'm responsible for, but like if I want to go and spend time with them, I mean, they're in their
Yeah.
70s and 80s. I would like to spend as much time with them as I can.
Yeah.
So if anything positive came from COVID, I think there have been some things that are
Right.
positive. But I think, given some of the things that I saw throughout the course of the pandemic and even afterwards, very much recognizing that our time is not limited, but it is in a respect, and so
Absolutely.
um, recognizing and appreciating the privilege that I have in order to make these decisions. I mean, we worked very hard to get in a place that this was an option to even pursue, just having that space. And I recognize that privilege, because there's a lot of people right now that are struggling.
Yeah.
But I think again, both can kind of coexist at the same time, right? You can recognize your privilege, but also, make these decisions to be around and to help people out. And,
Yeah. And don't
I've been
discount that
more,
it's still work.
yes,
Like
exactly. Oh,
there's still risk. There's
so
still
you've
work.
met them?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely
Mhm.
resonate with that. My mom passed away when I was 13 years old, and she was 39, and I turned 39
Yeah.
this year. And I mean, that was to be honest, that's a whole other episode. Like that's where I decided to be an entrepreneur, was when
Yeah.
I had my son, because I
Yeah.
thought I want to be in a little bit more control. And I've always kind of felt like, responsibilities, need to make money, but
Yeah.
also my measurement of currency first is time, and
Yes.
then everything else that falls through. Now that's not like, that
Yes.
might sound a little ignorant. I've a wonderful husband. Like we have everything we need. All of our needs are met. I'm
Yes.
very
Yes.
grateful for that. We are by no means like, you know, riches and riches. That's not it.
Right. Right.
But we work hard, but we really do look at time is such on that threshold. And yeah, turning 39 this year, I'm like, wow, what a gift. And so to be
hmm
able to balance both, that doesn't mean it doesn't come with, man, those ups and downs, the inconsistencies,
Oh,
the hard work. But
yeah.
when I look at the time it affords, where, if my son is sick, or during COVID where they were home, or the teachers strike, all the shit,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I can be here. And I've really always looked at motherhood as like, that's also my job. And it is, like, for all moms, like, holy crap, you carry the weight of
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
So I have mad respect for people who can be responsible, accountable to their personal growth, to their professional growth, to their families, but then find those creative outlets that just like, and take the risk and like leap into it is so incredible. But I love that. And I love when people can say, I went golfing on a Monday. Like, awesome, right? Like Mike and I, we have my husband, like we do like date days, like during the middle of the week at lunch. Cause sometimes it's like, we can never find a friggin' babysitter, and Finnegan's at that age where it's like in between. So we're like, well, we'll go for a lunch date. I'm like, every time we go for lunch during the middle of the week, I'm like, we're so lucky.
Really?
So nice.
But
like,
I think that's it. I think as long as you're recognizing that privilege piece, I think, you know, that's a super important part. And I mean, you and I have talked about it before, like we, again, with the similarities, like my dad took sick when I was very young and he passed when I was a teenager, and it's the exact same thing. And I look at, you know, my mom and my aunts, and they've all outlived their parents, and they, you know what I mean? Like, and you look at them and they live like it's a gift. And I think that where the space is there and where it's possible to do so, I think we need to recognize that these things are gifts. Every day that you wake up, you know, I had a very close, you know, a very close friend of mine. She had like an aneurysm or a stroke during COVID. And this is somebody I came up with. She's my age, you know, like a year older maybe. But her life is substantially different now. And, you know, so that was something in my mind. You know, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, you know, something could happen overnight, who knows, you know, but without being like super doomsday-ish about it.
Right.
I think just recognizing, you know, every morning when I'm working out, I'm like, oh, this is about the last thing I want to do. But then I think, but I physically can do it. You know, like I can walk down the stairs, and I can lift up these heavy things, and I can get on the treadmill. And it's a privilege. It's all a privilege. So I think as long as you're recognizing those privilege pieces, you know, and recognizing that not everybody's in the same boat, and help the people that maybe aren't in the same boat if you can. You know, I think that's okay. You know, it's okay to make those choices and feel good about those choices, even though at the same time, you know, that there's stuff that's going on out there. Right. So
absolutely. I think you've probably heard me say this inside the membership. Like, I can no longer call it my to-do list. I put it like on the go or get to. And that difference, that difference of like have tos and get tos, where we can really separate our piles of like a lot of the things we put at like, oh, I have to work out, I have to do this. But we're like, oh my gosh,
no, I get to work out.
I'm an able body, I get to. That's something I try to like lead with, because it really does like, put that gratitude hat on. I'm actually going to segue this, what you were talking about in terms of, you know, personal brand photography, because I think this is going to be a good segue. When you talk about, when you see yourself, like when clients see themselves and we're so critical, maybe that's that way, like, wow, you get to have your photograph and like look at your body and celebrate that beautiful face. And so I guess we can talk about both product and personal branding, but when it comes to personal branding, you know, if a new client's coming in, and I'm sure, because I've been on that side of it as well, where very critical or not as confident or like uncomfortable, what would be something, you know, if anyone listening, like, what would you offer as a way for people to really prepare to feel really good? Because I also think energy is everything. So if you're going into a photo shoot feeling really uncomfortable, less confident, feeling like shit, like, oh, like I had a bad night's sleep, my bags in my eyes, now I'm going to do that. Like, I feel like we bring that in, and I've seen it before. Where sometimes I just want to smack her across the face and go, "You're beautiful. Stop it. Smile. It increases your face value." Like, it's what would you lend to that?
So I do think I know this, I do things a little bit differently than some of my colleagues, and I'm actually good with that. And it is a longer process maybe. But I've found that over time it's proven to work well. I would say like everybody always says, oh, I don't like having my photo taken. And I always say, well, like that's 95% of my clients, and the other like 3 are products maybe.
They don't talk back.
They don't blink. Like, it's really great. And so over time I've I mean, you know me well enough, I think by now, like don't get me wrong, I can be formal, I can fit in a formal environment, but I tend to be pretty casual. If you look at my own branding photos, they are all, I've got a top knot, I've got, you know, a plaid shirt, or I've got a romper, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's put together and polished, but
it's you.
Yeah, I'm not fussy, right? Like I'm not a
Yeah.
fussy person. And that's by design. I wasn't raised to be a fussy, well, I'm not from fussy people. But I have also been everywhere between like a size 5 and a size 29. And I can tell you that regardless of what size I wasn't happy with my body. And so to me, that says that has nothing to do with your body and your shape. That
Yeah.
has everything to do with what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And so what I like to do is try and have, I mean, already people are coming to me and they know that I'm pretty relaxed. I always say I'm actually like legitimate anxiety disorders. Like I'm very open about all of that. And I always say, listen, if we're in a photo shoot, I am going to be the most nervous person in the room. It's not going to be you. So don't worry.
Yeah.
Look at me and know that I'm freaking out more inside than you ever will. So,
I love that transparency.
like there's no gatekeeping with anything that I do.
Yeah.
And like, I had some really crappy experiences when I first started and I refused to do that. Right. And so it starts out very simple. When somebody approaches me and they want to talk about a session, there's a guide that I send them, and it essentially goes through who I am, what I do, how we work together. And then, of course, it has like the investment part of it, but it's very much like, I mean,
What,
it's not
you
super
charge for
long.
your services and
I know.
gifts?
This isn't free. I know. Shocking. And even if you ask me, I'm not going to give it to you for free because
Hell yeah. I love it.
No. And so I start with that piece. And so then they review it and they kind of get a sense of who I am and all of that. And then from that piece, okay, yeah, I want to, let's go ahead. This is the package that I want to go with. Okay, great. So then I send them off a draft contract. Now in my contract, it talks about, I'm happy to refer you on to somebody that will do all of the liquefying and that will remove double chins and remove, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. I don't do that personally.
This is going to be one of my questions. I was really curious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a 3-week rule essentially. So if it's gone in 3 weeks, it's a bruise, blemish, black eye, whatever. Please don't come to me if you have a black eye. That sounds awful. It sounds like a terrible,
that's a lot of work.
job. But if it's gone in 3 weeks, yeah, sure. Absolutely. Cause I'm 42 and I still get acne every now and then. Right. So I get it. I
love this rule.
Mm-hmm.
This is so refreshing.
Even in like the boudoir work that I've done over the years, it's the exact same rule. Like but I'm happy. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm happy to refer you to somebody. I have lots of colleagues that will do it. And that's great. I mean, it would be a very boring, like, it would be a boring world if we were all the exact same. So, that's fine. And so we start with that piece. And then once we get all the administrative stuff done, then I have a very brief, like from this point, these things are very brief because nobody wants to sit there and read gobs and gobs of paperwork. But I have a very simple style guide that's like, don't wear this, do that, whatever.
Stripes aren't always the most flattering.
Right. Well, and then there's some people, if they have glasses, for example, like I get it, but sometimes glasses can not only can you get a reflection, but it can also, depending on your prescription, you can get quite a distortion looking through them, right? Like your face can kind of change.
Right. Yeah. That would make sense.
Right. So like, I mean, if you're more comfortable, absolutely wear them.
Yeah.
But if you're not, married to the idea of wearing them, then bring them and we'll use them as a prop. Or you can wear some, like I did one on the weekend and she wore them for half the pictures, didn't wear them for we would do like one set and then she'd take them off and she'd hold them or she'd put them on the desk or whatever. Right.
Which helps give a little bit of variety too.
Absolutely. And so that's something that we do. And then I have a list of personal care service providers that I've worked with over the years and I've kind of vetted. And I'm happy to, I have that list that I can give them. And then I have a very short kind of workbook that's like, do you like light and airy? And then there's an example. Do you like dark and moody? And there's an example, places that they can kind of make notes about outfit ideas or prop ideas or location ideas, things like that. And so it's all kind of one package that they get. And then they also all get a private Pinterest board that they can use to pin, inspiration that they like. Right. Yeah. And so by the time, and they get me, I mean, such as I am, but they get me, and there's emailing back and forth, and there's DMs back and forth. And, you know, some of them I'm even like on the phone with, you know, so as much as I can do to handhold as we're going through the process.
Yeah.
And then honestly, like on the weekend, my client, she's like, oh, I'm here, but I'm really, really early. And I was like, bring your coffee up and have it here. And because we'd never met, she's like, oh, I'm just in the car having my coffee. And I was like, no, bring it up. Because
Yeah.
we'd never met in person. Like we'd met, you know, over Instagram or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, come on up. And we sat there and we shot the shit until her session was supposed to have started like 10 minutes ago. And we're still sitting there chatting, getting to know each other. And, you know, by the time we started shooting, there wasn't that awkward, like, oh, I don't like this, or I don't, you know, it was very just like hanging out. And that's my goal. My goal is at the end of this, so many of my clients are now friends of mine. And
I love that.
That has been intentional, and that's been by design. And, you know, that's my goal. I want to be friends with my clients at the end of the session. I don't want anybody to walk away and be like, this was the most awful, awkward, you know, hour.
Oh, for sure. Life. And that's where that anxiety and stress comes from when you said, like, I'm going to be the most, because you want this experience to go well. You want them to be happy. I remember same thing when I was on photo shoots on the styling lens. I'm like, oh my God, I hope they like that. Like because there's only really one shot and it's so stressful. And I like that you're transparent with them about, no, so whatever nervous you are. Yeah. It's all me.
It's true.
And I enjoy that. I like your process because it sounds very much, instead of less transactional, we're building more trust and transparency. And I think that that's really refreshing because especially, I mean, it's a vulnerable, nobody likes to be vulnerable. It's really hard to show our vulnerability. There's still that's, you know, some people think it's the showing of weakness. Nobody wants to be vulnerable, but it's such a vulnerable situation when you're literally quite under the microscope. You're behind the lens and it's like, So I understand that, you know, it can be really nerve wracking. And so I love that you have this whole kind of prep of like, I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to like figure out like, what's the look? And it sounds like you really like to get to know your clients so that they have the best experience. And so, and I really like this 3-week rule. I think that's pretty good. I do. I love it. I think we're so hard on ourselves and it's refreshing. I love seeing, you know, even though like I've done quite a few branding shoots, I'm going to have to come down to London and we're going to have to do some work together. Cause I think
I would love that.
We're already friends. So we've already like scratched that off and we'd have so much fun. But like, I think so. You know, I always like to say to people too, in terms of like personal brand, like, you know, you want to look like you and you want it to feel like you. And I mean, what better joy when you see your photos and it's like, oh my gosh, that totally looks like me. Because then me on the marketing side of things where I'm like, yeah, like get this on your website, get this on your Instagram. Like, you know, and I think that all the steps you take help build up that confidence. And I just love that.
Well, and it's not like I'm not immune to it myself. Like the first time that I decided I was going to do my own brand photos, I packed up, like I went on Pinterest and I was like, oh, look at all of these really cool, really stylish outfits. Okay, listen, like nothing about me is cool or stylish. Like I have accepted that. I accepted that like years ago when I lived off of my brother's hand-me-downs. Like I got it.
That's hilarious.
And so, you know, I did this full like face of makeup on myself, which I don't wear makeup. Like eyeliner and mascara is kind of where I draw the line. Yeah. And, you know, I pulled out all of these outfits and I was like, this is going to be amazing. And I went up to the studio and I had my hair down and I started sweating. And this was before the app. So it was like running back and forth and setting the timer and then running. And then, you know, like, and my screen didn't come out. So it was literally like running around to check it out. And I just like broke and I just like bawled. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. And so I went into the bathroom and I, you know, cleaned myself up and I threw my hair in a top knot and I changed back into my, you know, ripped jeans and my plaid shirt. And I went back out there and I did these photos. And I think that was actually one of the pictures that I sent to you as like my brain. And that was that day. And I was just like, you know what, this is me, and like it or lump it, you know, I am me. I'm not, is it more polished than a cell phone photo? For sure.
Yeah.
But is it
Totally fine with
all
that.
right? Like it's kind of an elevated version of me, but that's me. And when people see me and they meet me, they know who it is because I have wrinkles. I have bags under my eyes. I, sometimes carry a little extra around the middle, but that's okay because that's
Yeah.
me. And I like to think that people care more about me as what I can provide and the human that I am than what I look like in a photo. And that's my wish for other people too, right? Like as important as these are, I want them to feel like themselves and I want them to be comfortable. And that's why, like I said, it is a little bit more work the way that I do it. But I'm thrilled to do it that way. If at the end of it, they get their photos and they're like, wow, I feel amazing and I look amazing. And, this is going to help me put food on my table and support my family and
Yeah.
whatever. Right. Like that's my goal. And maybe that's the difference is because I didn't intend on this to be a business. I'm not maybe out there trying to make money at any
Right.
cost, right? Like I'll
Yeah.
just make money and just jam people through and it's like a revolving door. Like I'm more interested in like the other piece that goes along with it.
There's two things that I've picked up on that. One, I think that is probably the best overall lesson for this entire episode for anyone listening is if you want to get your hair done, you want to feel elevated. And if you normally wear makeup, wear the makeup. But I was the same thing. First time I invested in my first photo shoot, I liked a lot of the photos, but half of them, I don't know what I did. I went to H&M, I bought all these outfits and I returned them all because I don't wear them. But I thought I have to have them for the photo shoot. I have to up my game. I wore a bodysuit. If you guys catch me in a bodysuit, something is wrong. Get help. Find my husband.
Have been kidnapped.
I can't wear. Oh, seriously, I would be a mess trying to get to the bathroom and fidget with all that underneath. Like I'll be running hot. I don't wear bodysuits, and I don't know why. I wore them in this photo shoot, and you know what? Half of those out of like 200 photos I got, half of them, anytime I was wearing something that I don't normally wear, I never used them. So it was also a waste of my time and it was a waste of my money in that session.
Absolutely.
Where I'm like,
yep.
I should have just. And so since then, after seeing that, I'm like, wow, like I look beautiful, but I'm like, that does not look like me. And if you go to book me, there is no way I'm showing up wearing a bodysuit or wearing that outfit. And so the next time, live and let learn, whatever. And then any photo I have where I'm like, I'm in my ripped jeans, t-shirt, no shoes. I'm like, that's Ange. Like, that's who I am. Like, if you come to my door with mail and I open it, probably wearing that. And so I felt more confident to share that on my website through my marketing material on my Instagram. Cause I'm like, hell yeah, that's me. And I think to like continue on that note to your point on that is also for one, then you're confident to share it, but also from an outsider look, I don't want my audience to think, oh, like she's so polished. And where it's like when you actually get on, like you've been in, the Q&A calls, I'm like, hey guys, I'm not like, hello. And okay, we're going to go through. That's just not my style. And so the more you can embrace, and maybe that is your style. Maybe I always used to tell people like, if you don't normally wear a blazer, don't wear one or bring one to your photo shoot. Cause like you probably won't use that photo ever. But if you do, then wear that, whatever. Like I always thought, if we're going to show up for a blind date at a coffee shop, I want you to be able to pull me out of the crowd because based off how I've showed up elsewhere, connector, you're like, oh, there she is, of course, blue jeans, t-shirt. And that's just my own opinion, but I just find it creates a better connection.
Well, it's the authenticity piece, right? Like you want it to be authentic. And even when it comes to posing, like I'll say, I'll put out a stool, for example. I have lots of stools and chairs and stuff. And so I'll pull out a stool and I'll say, okay, you sit on it in a way that's most comfortable. And if I need to move you for the aesthetic side of it, I will, but you sit on it however is most comfortable.
Right.
And chances are that the way that they sit on that stool will end up translating to be much more authentic than if I said, okay, now get up. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll get up and be like, okay, try this, try this, try this.
Totally.
But from the start, it's like, okay, what's the most comfortable way for you? And then, okay, why don't you put that foot down? Or why don't you bring that foot up? Or why don't you, point your toe this way or that way or whatever, right? And it translates, and even my approach during the session, I'll say, you do what you do in your everyday business. So whatever, you're sitting at the desk, you've got your laptop, go for it. I'm going to move around you and I'm going to capture what you're doing. And then periodically I'm going to tell you to look at me and smile, or I'm going to tell you to look that way, or I'm going to tell you to look that way, or whatever. But
Yeah.
you keep doing what you're doing, and I'm going to move around you. And that's it. It seems to be that has just created images that are authentic. They look like them. They're doing, you know what I mean? And yeah, I might be
Yeah.
like, sit up straighter or whatever. Like I've
Yeah.
got the
Nobody
worst
wants to
posture.
see a picture
So
of them hunched over. So
yeah.
my husband has to constantly remind me, sit up straight. I'm like, thank you. You have to keep reminding me to sit up straight.
It's so bad. I know. I'm so bad.
You know what I love
know?
too? Like that second part where you had talked about, your process being a little bit longer, but you've got people coming through, like people are coming, where you were saying not always focusing on, obviously you have to charge people, but like your focus is really on like the quality and like what you can do. And despite all that, it's still coming. I wanted to just touch on that as well for everyone listening, where, where our focus goes, energy flows. And I truly believe that. So if you're constantly like, I need bookings, I need bookings, I need bookings. But if you're like, I need to give them the best experience, I need to help guide them, I need to like, instill this, then the rest kind of just comes. And I think when you talked about authenticity, I think you're a very good example of that, of leading with the opportunity to really support people, help them get what they need, feeling good, feeling in a safe space. And then just like naturally, that's just going to bring in that abundance of like more clients and more friends. And of course, if these clients are becoming your friends, well, who are they going to go to? Oh, I see a little friend behind you.
Come on then.
We also
says,
both work from home with our doggies.
She says, oh, well, why is this door almost closed?
She was usually asleep beside me. She decided to go sleep in my bed today.
Yes, you can lay right there. Okay. No, but it's true. And, even I actually had a bit of a head to head with somebody fairly recently, because they said that I think what they were inferring was that I play kind of small ball, because I focus so heavily on small businesses and local entrepreneurs and all of that. And that I should be going after and pitching these big brands and yes, there is some validity to what they were saying. I understand they do have, typically they have a bigger budget or whatever. And I do work for bigger brands. But I'm never going to leave those entrepreneurs. I'm never going to leave those small business folks, because that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
When I kind of niched down, it was about 2018, I think. People were like, you're doing what? And I was like, yeah, because it was like headshots back then, right? Like nobody did branding work.
Yeah.
And so, and then, COVID came, and so many of them weren't online. They didn't know how to get their images online. And, and so then I kind of transitioned to doing a lot of my Instagram stuff at that point was education pieces on, get close to a window. You can do all of these. I did a whole series of posts where I used, and I had like a jacked up, like iPhone 6 or something, like super, super old. But it was like, if I can take these photos with this camera and this free version of Lightroom, you can do it to get your photos online so that you can feed your family in a time where people couldn't go out and shop. Right. And so, and I was hosting, live Zoom calls with local businesses in town, saying, okay, this is because Instagram was a lot more simple back then. Here's how you can build a following on Instagram. Here's how you can sell your products on Instagram here, and I would have all of these like group and one-on-one sessions where I would be helping people with like how to create content, and all of that. Because these businesses, they needed to put food on the table. And some of them, whether it was because of age or they just never needed to because they had a brick and mortar, or they were able to do sales in like the markets and all of that, they needed some help. And so, my job didn't stop. People were still doing, what it was that I was doing, throughout the pandemic. So I had a full-time job. And so, I didn't need to focus on, I was very blessed in that I didn't have to focus on how am I paying my bills. And so that time and energy that I did have, to me, was much better spent helping the people around me, and continuing on with that. So that's kind of what we did. And as things started to open up, branding, or commercial as they call it, was the only thing that was allowed to continue for photography. Right. Yeah. And so weddings weren't allowed, family sessions weren't allowed. And so I watched kind of all of my colleagues that were doing weddings and families and all of that, they became branding photographers. Right. And so it was one of those things when we kind of came out of it and everybody started going back. I mean, everybody's still doing branding. It's become a huge thing. It's been interesting to watch how it's changed
Oh,
over
100%.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was kind of one of those things where I was like, oh my goodness, was that I wanted them to be able to support their families during the pandemic because I was able to support
Right.
mine. So I didn't shoot for a very long time during the pandemic. And when things opened up, I didn't immediately jump back in because they needed to be able to do that. So when I did finally kind of start getting back out there again, I thought, oh my goodness, was that a mistake? Like, should I have continued?
Right.
And am I going to be able to rebuild this now that everybody's doing the same thing and all of that? So it was very much a rebuilding season, kind of when we came out of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's gone well. And like I said, it's been interesting to see how it's increased. Everybody's doing it, and just the changes in a genre that was kind of unheard of for a long time. So
right.
It's been fascinating to see for sure.
I wonder if that could, I mean, on the other side of it, it could also help because it really just comes down to supply and demand. So it's kind of the more, and you think, oh, wow, everybody's doing the branding photography, but it's like, then the more people see it, they're like, is this a need? I didn't know I needed this.
Yeah.
So like it kind of perpetuates
yeah.
like, oh, there's actually now more people who never thought they needed personal branding. And now they're like, I guess I do. I'm always a big believer that, there's room for everybody. And, if anyone here is listening, they're like, want to dabble in photography? Like there's always space, because obviously uniquely you are truly what you offer, the experience, the process, the output, all of it is obviously going to be unique to you. And I really love that, to me, like just even the way you described it, even deciding like where you didn't shoot, like you pulled back, or to be able to teach and help people, like that comes from such a place of like integrity and honesty. And I think over time, clearly that has led to you being able to jump in full time. And so I will say, maybe you'll resonate to this, because I like to say, like, play the long game. Like it's like, you're talking like went golfing on Monday. Like golf it's a slower pace. It's something over time. Like nobody picks up a golf club and just swings at it and is like, it's frustrating. It's patience. And I think that's a lot of small business entrepreneurship is don't give up too easily. But if you're willing to play the long game, that's where you'll start to build that foundation, and certainly respect, I think, in your audience.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, for sure.
Oh man. I love chatting with you. Thank you so much for jumping in. I think that this had lent to, and I knew it would, like last night I was like, oh, as we were talking offline, I'm like, I'm not going to send you any questions because I know we're just going to chat. And I think like like it doesn't surprise me that this seems to be the process of how you work with your clients too. It's like, let's just chat. Like, well, how can I help? How can I get you there? So I wanted to say thank you, because I think this is really helpful, not just from the obvious of like what you offer in personal branding and supporting there, but just lending to your experience of like what that journey looked like from you, and where you kind of lead with, and that gratitude of like having that time, like to do those things with your family, and feeling very fortunate to be able to do that. But I want to make sure that everybody gets connected to you, because I know you've got some things coming up. I will say, if you enjoy this episode, I have Michelle coming inside of the community, my creative marketing membership, in October 11th. So it will be a live training for members. Membership is open. You can join at any time. So if you want to have some questions related to photography, business, even if you have questions, I'm sure with Michelle about leaving that full-time gig and getting into your side hustle full-time, I'm sure there'll be opportunity for that. With the live trainings, we always have room for Q&As. So if you want to get to learn more from Michelle, head to creativemarketingmembership.com and join us on October 11th. Otherwise, make sure you get connected. Can you share with us your website, your Instagram? Where can everybody connect with you?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to come and see me be awkward, like, let's do that.
I love it.
Socials. At socials, it's at MEE Photography London. So MEE again, this wasn't supposed to be anything. That is legitimately my initials.
I love it. It's perfect.
It's actually lent itself well, because then I can, like, it's a play on words sometimes, right? Where I can say,
Totally.
let me show you, or yeah.
You know,
So
from the marketing side, I'm like, yes, mix that in
it,
there. I love it.
it was a happy coincidence, I guess.
I love it.
Yeah. So at MEE Photography London is both Facebook and Instagram, and I guess Threads as well, although I tend to neglect that pretty badly. Website is www.meephotography.ca. And yeah, I mean, it's real. That's all I could say. It's all very real. It's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a challenge, but we get through it all together. And to me, it's about community, and just kind of, just appreciating what we have, but also, working to get more and learn more and all of that stuff. So it's all, yeah, it's very real, and I love it. And I love the people that I get to work with. I'm very blessed to be able to do all of this. That's for sure.
It shows. And as much as you
Mm-hmm.
said real, I'll throw one other R in there. It's also very refreshing, I think, the way you
Aww.
show up. So
Well,
thank you.
I'm unapologetically me, and
Which I
unapologetically,
love. I love. Let's
you
cut through
know,
the bullshit. I'm so
it's
sick of,
true.
I know.
It's true. I
Yeah.
was telling my mom about coming on this, and I was like, it's a really funny story, Mom. I'm like, I used to, like, listen to this podcast back, years ago, and I started, like, Instagram stalking the two of them, and I said, and now I'm on one of their podcasts, and, like, she's like, you did what? Like,
Right?
but I mean, she's used to it. She knows what she's got.
I love it. I'm so glad
Mm,
you're able to join because again, I've loved watching, everything that you've been doing. But what really intrigued me was, yeah, that whole story, and just your experience of, like, where this got you to be honest, when you had shared with me that you worked full time, like this was months ago,
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this isn't a full time thing for you. Like, I
No. Yeah.
never would have known, because I could see, and maybe that's because you're so passionate about it, and it seems to come very naturally, like the way you were showing up on social. I'm like, I can't believe this isn't a full-time thing. And so
Yeah.
over the course of time, when you're like, I'm getting ready to leave, like, that was like, oh, this is really, it was just really cool to see, because it's not easy. It's
No.
stressful. It's like, oh my God, like, it's uncomfortable. And I think this was just really great timing, just knowing that you just had, like, your first week of, like, this is what you do. And I'm sure, actually,
Yeah.
one last question.
Yeah. Yeah.
How weird is it if someone says to you, oh, hey, Michelle, just meeting you. What do you do?
Oh. Well, I didn't. I mean, I never said that I was a photographer ever. Like,
Right.
it just seemed
So is
like
this like,
so.
this is so bizarre?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's been really weird. And even when I left, because I did essentially retire from that career,
Right.
that's what I said to everybody. It's a retirement. I'm not leaving there to go somewhere else. I'm leaving there to choose happy, to choose me, to choose the family. And so yeah, like, when people are like, what do you do? Like, we had Meet the Teacher, right? And like,
Right.
well, and it's always one of those things where, you say you do this, and then people automatically think that, so it's
Right.
like, okay, what do you, like, when I say that that's what I do, what do you think I do? Like, it's a really, it's all been living in a very, I don't like change, so this has been a lot for me.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and
you
you're
know
and you're not alone. I purposely
Mhm.
ask you that because I think a lot of people listening, I know myself included, when I still fumble, probably because I'm like squirrel and I love doing
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the things. But like, if someone says,
yeah,
like, what do you do? I'm like, well, like, I'm a marketing strategist, but like, I have a podcast, so I like to have support. Like, I can't just say, I don't have I can't, like, narrow
yeah.
myself into a title. And sometimes that's so nerve-wracking. And other times I'm like, oh, I don't know. Actually, and I will say, I just did an episode with Janek, who's also one of the members, and
Yep.
Goyreb. I hope I said that right, Janek, if she's listening. I always want to make sure I say people's names right. Janek Goyreb. And it was all about leadership and becoming the leader in your business. So I'm just going to plug that. That was episode 39. So if you
Yeah,
haven't listened to that one, she has a very good take about, not playing small and really assigning ourselves that, even just we're a small business, we are the leaders in our business, and how can we build up
yeah,
that confidence. And so it's always a
yeah.
work in progress. But I
I
mean,
think so. Yeah, I think so.
well, I love having Michelle here, brand photographer.
Well, thank you.
If that's what title you want to go with.
Yes, I guess that's what I'll say.
Photographer extraordinaire. I mean, hell, it's your business. You can call yourself whatever you want.
I'll just be the assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah. I love it. Well,
yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. I will put all of your details into the show notes. I do hope that you could connect with Michelle on Instagram. MEE Photography London.
London. Yeah. And it's Little London. It's not Big London. I get things from the UK periodically and I have to say, oh no, I'm across the pond. Sorry.
Yeah. We're the London, Ontarios, where I was
Little
born
London.
as well. Little London.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little London.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I'm so glad that we got to chat.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.